Welcome to Interviews and Insights from our Southwest Smart Manufacturing meetings. A recurring series of events run from the RDI Hub, this event was kindly sponsored by IDEAM, the Irish Digital Engineering and Advanced Manufacturing Cluster, which supports businesses to collaborate, innovate and grow. Find out more at ideam.ie. Okay, I'm here today with Ciaran Hourican, who is the Managing Director of H-Suite. He's just after giving a really interesting presentation today, along with Lorraine Lucid, who is the Business Unit Manager. Ciaran, can you tell me a little bit about your background, and then we'll go into H-Suite, what it is and what it's about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kerry. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be on. So H-Suite is a training consultancy firm. We would kind of operate across a range of different kind of verticals, kind of consultancy, strategic development, executive coaching. We would also do a lot of leadership training at all levels. And kind of, I suppose, our side hustle effectively is we do a lot of work in a kind of competency-based interview prep. We train, interview boards, and we'd also train candidates, and then kind of career development has been an offshoot of that as well. So kind of varied enough.
That's great. You were saying in your presentation today, it's all about helping companies scale and grow. So the emphasis today was on scaling and growth. So tell me a little bit more about your three pillars in particular: strategy, training and coaching.
Yeah, so I guess training was the original one. We've recently rebranded. We used to be called H Training. And I suppose training was our initial kind of gig. We worked across a lot of kind of major public sector contracts on Garda Síochána, the Irish Prison Service, certified leadership programs. And I suppose having worked with a lot of senior executives and kind of, we would give fairly kind of nuanced reports within the training, identify trends in a business. This kind of led us into a kind of a more of a consultancy focused approach, where organizations have kind of challenges, be it with performance, be it with capacity, or really kind of, I suppose, answering the why question around scalability. I guess if you're scaling a business, it's very much a vocational endeavor, in my opinion. It's not for the faint of heart. And I guess I've had a front row seat with some very high performing CEOs and senior managers in that space for the past few years. And I think it's a very exciting time. There's a lot of capacity within this country. I think it's about kind of honing it in the right direction.
Okay. Speaking about being passionate about what you do and about something being a vocation, H Training was founded by your mother, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. Helen Hourican, she founded it in 1989 and has been training and coaching people ever since then. I suppose my involvement has brought us kind of more in a kind of a tech direction. And I guess a lot of what I would advise on is succession planning. And you see a lot of these kind of family grown businesses. I've been through that. I understand that, two big personalities in one organization can at times be a challenge. But there are ways, I guess, to work through it. Now, Helen has since retired, but I mean, we had a very productive relationship. And it is an interesting dynamic. But I suppose what I said in the presentation today was the legacy piece is really important for me. Like, I mean, this organization I know I'm managing director of provided for me as a kid, so I was raised in it. And I guess that adds an extra layer into it as well too,
And you have two kids yourself. Can you see them following in the family footsteps?
My son says that actually. He says he kind of has these throwaway comments. He's 11 and he goes, "Yeah, but you have a great job, Dad. I could do what you do." So I don't know. It must look good. Yeah, so we'll take it.
That's great. Yeah. Joking aside, though, on one of the slides, you had a terrifying stat where you said that 28% of company leaders said they don't expect their company to be around in 10 years' time unless it reinvents itself among the seismic shifts in technological adoption and the risks associated with climate change. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So that's based off an Irish Times PwC survey that was done recently. I find it odd. I mean, I guess in a survey you do have to look for bias. In my experience, a lot of managing directors and CEOs can be very optimistic, ebullient, solution-oriented. There's plenty of them too who are very direct speakers and impatient, and they'll kind of tell you what you think. Now, I think that's not an industry agnostic survey, so like we don't know what field it's coming from, but I would suggest the rate of change at the minute is keeping a lot of people awake at night. You see a lot of these organizations. I've seen a couple of examples of it where people have had ideas or have started something and AI has just basically wiped it out. It's just, ChatGPT 4 can do all of that. There's another wave of them about to be released now that can have a background in logic and things like that. So I think it's quite overwhelming, everything that's going on, and trying to get to grips with it, I think, is everyone's challenge. We can't stick our head in the sand, but we also can't get seduced by the hype, and if you go off and invest in everything and it turns out to be the next iteration of the mini disc, or some technology that's just killed by something else. I even see that happening in real time where you'll subscribe to an AI tool and they'll have an upgrade within 6 months, that makes the original iteration of it effectively redundant. So the pace is, I think, something that's really, really challenging to navigate at the minute. I don't know, is there a direct answer for that other than, I guess, being mindful of it and keenly having a look at the market, and the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And following on from that, can you talk to me about what other trends are you seeing at the moment?
So I think the biggest one would pertain to, I guess, the legacy of COVID-19 or the fallout from COVID-19. There has been a huge, I suppose, reduction in people's capacity or interest to work. We saw this, I think it was in 2022, in Q4 of 2022 in the UK. I hope my figures are right here now, but it was something around in the region of 150,000 working age women just left the workforce, just walked. A lot of them would have been in that kind of 35 to 44 bracket. So we're talking about moms, we're talking about people who had the brunt of the childcare burden, working remotely. COVID clarity was a phenomenon. Some people nearly died from COVID or had people close to them who did or nearly died. And there's just this reassessing of values and looking at life. A lot of people work very, very hard. We, particularly I think people with kids and kind of in the famous Middle Ireland, we're very stretched, and it's quite difficult. I think a lot of people are just losing their kind of zeal for it, meaning. So what I've seen, and it's not just within that demographic, I've seen it at senior levels right across the board, is people just asking deeper questions around their careers. What's the meaning of this and what's the purpose for this, right? And it's interesting, ESG, a lot of people will be maybe a bit cynical and see it as a box ticking thing, but I think ESG definitely speaks to that. Why? The rote answer you'll get is money. I have to pay bills. Yes, we all do. That's a reality. But I think there is a greater burden on employers now to kind of instill a vision and a purpose in their staff. And that's right throughout from the C-suite on down. People are craving, I guess, that sense of meaning. And I think there's a dearth of it at the minute, or people are just kind of burnt out. I mean, the Taoiseach stepped down for the same reason, So it's everywhere,
That leads me very nicely to the next question. What does a typical day look like for you?
So it's varied. It will depend. If I'm on site with a client, it's a very different day where I'll be up in front of a group or facilitating a group or various coaching engagements. You can do a lot of the coaching online. But yeah, there's the being in front of people aspect of it. And I guess that's where we kind of make our money. But beyond that, then it's really reviewing kind of various strategies, OKRs, different methodologies that we've broken down. When you run your own business, you do everything basically, So it's varied, I guess. And what I love is that I'll work with new companies regularly. You'll see the same trends, but you'll see a different dynamic, and that keeps it kind of fresh, for me.
Can I ask you just my second last question? Can you talk to me about ambition, your framework for growth and scale?
Yeah, so this is something we're quite excited about. Me and a colleague and friend of mine, Susan Clancy of BPI Services, have got together and collaborated on, I guess, a people process hybrid in the form of Ambition Plus. This is a framework we've put a lot of thought and effort into that, I guess, gives SMEs a pathway to scale, right? And I guess my thing is, I guess, the hearts and minds, the meaning piece, talking to people, having those conversations. What's the sacrifice needed? How can we frame that? Are we in a position to scale? I will look at the people. I look at the kind of legacy issue, nurturing it, and succession planning. And Susan will really be looking at, I guess, the process, how to do it lean, how to write your kind of objectives, strategy, mission, values, and we'll kind of collaborate across different pieces of that. I think I'm very, very excited about it. I guess for me, I always see there's so much capacity and so much ability that sometimes maybe doesn't always go in the direction people want it to. I think there's a few people get disappointed by that. Being an entrepreneur is very, very difficult. And again, I guess I am a version of an entrepreneur, but I've been in front of those high performing, big number guys too. And it takes a lot, it really does take a lot. But I think if you have a very clear structure and everybody else around you is aware of that structure and your strategy is monitored accordingly, you have the right people in the right seats, I really think that frees up an awful lot and provides you with that kind of runway, to go where you want to go. That
is great. Thanks, Ciaran. Last question. If somebody would like to find out more about H-Suite, how would they get in touch?
So reach out to me, Ciaran Hourican on LinkedIn. Susan Clancy, she's on LinkedIn as well, or you can check out my website. The domain is still htraining, all one word, htraining.net. And Susan, if you just Google BPI Services, you can get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from people that have, even if you have a few thoughts around this, no iteration of Ambition Plus will be the same for every company. Some of it might be light touch. We might go a bit more in depth with other people. But I mean, Susan and I are both very, very passionate about other people succeeding and getting what they want to do. And so we derive a lot more than financial return for what we do, which is great.
Ciaran, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Kerry.
Cheers.